heart of innovation, this is Opportunities to Consider with your host, author, speaker, and corporate strategist, Hunter Gaylor.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the March Madness Market Update. And I am very excited to bring back a very close colleague of mine. I'm a huge fan of his company. I told you that from the moment we started following this company, it is massively undervalued. The stuff that they're doing from just, and people that know me from a market perspective know that I'm a lover of history. And we went back and we talked with this company, and this is Dais, their company symbol, which I'm putting in the lower thirds right now. I'm going to bring you the CEO, Tim of DLYT. That's Dais Corp. The website's still the same. Tim, thanks for joining us again on another episode of Market Hunters. This is our market update. We're going to be talking to you about everything that's going on. So, Tim, thank you for joining us again on the Market Hunters platform.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And as we and I talked offline, one of the biggest things for Dais is the awareness, because we have incredible history, wonderful future, and people just don't know we exist. So we appreciate all the help you're giving us.
Well, listen, you know what? I'm a big fan of the company, obviously, not just from personal reasons, but because of a corporation, because of the innovation and everything that's going on. And as a lover of history, we went back when we first started our conversation about a month ago, when we had our first conversation. We've really had no innovation in the refrigeration space, or really air conditioning space, since Carrier. And what was it, 1932 or something like that? I don't remember the exact.
1902.
What was it?
1902. Willis Carrier.
1902. Yeah. So there you go. So now we're at now, and we see a lot of stuff going on. And I think the average person out there that's watching us or tuning in live to a lot of our segments, you know, they hear things like HVAC, and they hear things about water purification, and they hear things, you know, in the news with, you know, these big massive events that have occurred, like Flint, Michigan, or, you know, the thing that just happened in East Palestine, which was very unfortunate. But, you know, nonetheless, you're here. We're joined here by you live. We're talking about a lot of the innovation that's going on. What I want to talk about is the last time that you were on our program, we were talking about PFAS. And one of the things we were talking about PFAS was specifically on artificial turf, which we see in all of the, you know, and really we were talking about it. I didn't realize how much artificial turf was out there. I mean, this is tremendous, not just stadiums, but schools and, you know, playgrounds and everything where we're exposed to these forever chemicals. So, you know, I want to talk about that a little bit today, but we're also joined with a special guest that we have today that I want to bring into the program. His name is John Walsh, and John Walsh is actually joining us via audio. And John is the general manager of Dais. He actually comes out of the University of South Florida. He was in the Economic Development Council out of Tampa. He obviously understands municipalities. He's got a great background. So we want to bring him into the conversation a little bit as well as part of your organization to talk about Dais, where you're at and where you're going with some of these new developments. So John, do we have you? John, do we have you? John, we may not have you, but that's okay. We will figure it out. That's okay. If John joins us, we'll have him come in. But so Tim, let's go right to you on some of the innovations. We talked about the AstroTurf. Let's talk a little bit about PFAS and really some of the stuff that's coming out of the European Union. It's starting to get a lot of steam, Tim. It's getting a lot of steam. A lot of news articles I'm reading. My inbox is being inundated now with news articles coming out about PFAS and forever chemicals. So let's talk about that.
Fine. The issue in my mind, if you look at the topic and you look at the EPA and the EPAs of the world, they don't normally move as lightning fast as they have with this whole forever chemicals issue. I've been working in the water industry, working on things with Dais for over 20 years, and I've never seen such emphasis so fast. And what you're seeing, if you look across what the United States announced last week, what the UK announced a couple months ago, what the people in the European Union, the Middle East, and Africa, no countries there, you're finding a lot of similarities. Okay, the numbers are a little bit different, but they're really cranking down. And I mean really down. Today, acceptable numbers, if the state or the country has any, are in the 400, 500, and I won't go into the the metric, the range, 400, 500 items. They're cranking down to a 10 or 11. That's a huge difference. Very, very important, because this is something that, in my opinion, kind of snuck up. Everybody's been focused on water and clean water and all sorts of things, air, as far as the pandemic and the rest, but this one just came around the corner. And how pervasive is it? Well, the folks at the BBC did a study in the UK last summer, and they found that almost 70% of every single public school has too high a level of PFAS chemicals in their drinking water in the school itself. That's unbelievable.
I mean, this is incredible to me, Tim, because when you look at the education system and you see all the outrage that's coming out with various political events and topics that are coming across. I mean, yes, we can talk about a lot of the, personal things that people may have from a political perspective, right or left. But I mean, I look at it from a humanitarian perspective. And if you're telling me from the point of Dais that our children from these school systems are being exposed to essentially high-level toxicities in their school systems, from their water fountains to the ground that they play on. I mean, this is a tremendous talking point that I'm surprised a lot of people are not considering. And what are you doing, and what is Dais doing in working with some of these municipalities? I assume you're working with or in talks with several municipalities to, roll out various prescriptions for this type of issue.
No, we're looking at product-oriented firms that already have relationships established with the municipalities and the governments. It takes time to do that, but it's not just the municipalities and the governments. It's you and me at home. It's where we work. Right. There's a lot of influence there, and the concern that I have, being peripherally on the edge of the industry and having a tool that can do an awful lot of good, how do you begin this? How do you do it quickly? You mentioned a comment a little bit ago. How do you turn lemons into lemonade?
Right.
We have a plan, and we're executing against that plan today. But it's like everything we do. We like to do it with partners because they can move faster than we can. But we can be the, gosh, I hate to even use the analogy. We can be the Intel inside, so to speak, for the PC. We can make things work. And that's the beauty of the material. It works.
Tim, I actually like the fact that you brought that up, the Intel inside. That's the chip inside, right? If Data has the underlying fundamental building blocks that can help solve a problem, wouldn't it be an economic and professional perspective to be able to roll out a platform that allows people to take advantage of your technology, to be able to roll it out in a more cost-effective and more efficient way? One of the things that I have here in my notes that I've been asked from several members of the audience that listen into us that want us to ask this question is, why are we just now getting information about PFAS? Is this because of the mainstream media? I mean, people are saying that your technology is incredible. They're saying that you're totally undervalued, which I would agree with. And I think the global market hunters out there would also agree with me that this is something that not just affects us personally or from a market, but I mean, Tim, this is something that affects like our lineage, our heritage. I mean, like our children, our family members. Talk to me a little bit about where your company stands on that perspective.
That's why this is such an important issue for us. It's not the biggest bunch of do-gooders. Yeah, we are in a lot of ways, but at the same time, we have a task, and that is to return healthy profits to our shareholders, our stakeholders. And there's a great opportunity because you mentioned the term it snuck up on us. Yes, it did. A lot of it had to do with technology too. People didn't really check things to parts per trillion. This is the first time I've ever seen a commercial effort looking in that small of a molecule size or a population size, it's just incredible. Everything with the parts per billion was kind of like, wow, that's really cool. But you can do trillion, and that's when you pick up and you see where all this material is. And these are things that you and I have been seeing since we were kids on the market today, all sorts of products. And they got to change the way the product is built. And we can do help with that in certain instances. And in other areas, we can clean it out. You can do it at the commercial level, the municipal level. You can do it at the consumer level. So there's a lot of different variables here. But our position is that we're going to push very hard to take a leadership role as it comes to the material in products.
So, Tim, I want to go back to a press release that just came out on behalf of your company. You talked about clean water, but I also want to talk about this biochar, sustainability at its core. I think this is an incredible piece of technology, and I think our viewers want to get a little bit about your perspective from your lens, if you will. And I just want to take this quote here. Carbon credits are a unit of greenhouse gas emissions, reductions or removals that can be traded or sold in the carbon markets. Large companies can produce biochar-produced carbon credits as a way of offsetting their own greenhouse gas emissions. Now, I want to take this point. This is very important for the listeners. In 2019 alone, it's estimated that the U.S. created approximately 100,000 tons of biochar, which is enough to sequester approximately 300,000 tons of greenhouse gases. The U.S. creates over 3 billion tons and growing, might I add, of CO2 annually, requiring approximately 1 billion tons of biochar. It's clear the U.S. produces only a tiny fraction of the capacity needed for mainstream deployment of biochar. Tim, with the PFOA, the PFOS, and GenX from contaminated waters and everything, it seems to me Dais is set up to solve, or at least be one of the tools to solve this problem.
Yes. I would say solve in a summary sense, yes. I think there's remediation first, and then you can get to the point where you're restoring. Correct, yes.
Right. So I guess in summary, when you talk about repurposing this biochar wastewater using NanoClear, which is one of your products, okay, it provides the lowest cost per ton of processed water, which accelerates the use and advantages of the sequestering process. Walk our audience through what that means and why that is, in my opinion, and like I said, I don't want to speak for our viewers because, I try to stay, kind of, in the middle line here, but why is this a game changer? Because it seems to me that the DLYT product and the NanoClear product, I mean, this is the future, Tim.
Sure it is. I mean, look at people call it the fourth industrial revolution. And you get people saying it's the sixth, and everybody argues what number it is. But the bottom line is that for many, many years, all our lives, things have been powered by electricity, by petroleum, a number of different types of power. And when you're using a feature of a material, you're using a lot less or no power. So the efficiency of the advanced material-based products is much higher just right off the bat. And then you take into consideration tertiary savings. For instance, you're not creating as much CO2. You have more benefits. There are better features associated with the product that it's in. Kind of in the abstract in some sense, but the bottom line is that yes, that's the way the world is going. And fortunately, we've developed a material that has, we call it limited by your imagination, number of applications.
So Tim, when we talk about plastics and we talk about these forever chemicals, I mean, when it applies to the average individual, let's just call it the athlete, and we go to the grocery store and we pull a plastic bottle of water out, and we're drinking out of a plastic bottle of water or a bottle of water. Are we still experiencing the effects that PFOS has, these forever chemicals in these plastic materials? Are we going to be reinventing plastics? I mean, walk through me some of the consumer aspects of this. And I know you're laughing because I know I'm not the engineer. I'm just the reporter here. But I mean, it seems to me that this is a major opportunity to create irrevocable change in industry when it comes to purification, water, the way and And granted, you and I have talked before, and people can go back, and I would encourage all of our listeners to go back and watch some of our interviews. Our last interview we did with Tim has now gotten several thousand views on YouTube. We've got over 10,000 impressions on Twitter for our last conversation with Dais, talking about this, because people are concerned about, water and purification and the way that, industry is going. But what about when we talk about, we're drinking out of plastic bottles of water and recycling and all of this? Just break it down for us, Tim. I really break it down for us.
You have plastics that are used as a transport mechanism. You talk about bottles. I think people and companies that produce bottles today, they've gotten away from most of the real bad types of plastic, and people are focusing more on recycling. Yes, there are some companies and some places in the world where they're using the same plastics that aren't good for you. You shouldn't use them more than one time, and people reuse them. But that's the downside of plastic. The upside of it is you've got a material that we have, and yes, it is a plastic, but it degrades over time, and not a lot of time, a couple months to a year. Once it's thrown away, it doesn't do any damage to anything. So there are different ways of looking at plastic is my first point. The second thing is that the efficacy of the bottle is, okay, it holds liquid. Here's a bottle right here. Okay? It holds liquid.
There you go.
Fantastic. We not only do that, but we have another dimension to this material, and we manage things and we create features within that difference. And so now you've got a plastic that not only has the functionality of transporting water, but now it does other things. And in this case, it replaces pumps, motors, things that draw energy, things that aren't that efficient, things that break. The first thing people say when you mention HVAC, if they don't know what the term is, their eyes roll and they go, "Oh, it's so expensive." That's what people think about it. It's expensive. They don't think about what it does. Okay, it heats and it cools. Yeah, okay, but there are other things it can do for you, and that's where you see the beauty of this is. So now you have holding water, you have it doing other things, but now in addition to the other things that you're accustomed to today, features of an air conditioning system, you can apply greater functionality to that same system. So you benefit all the way around, and it's less expensive, and you're not causing a lot of trouble with the environment.
So I just want to bring in, I just want to see if John is back with us. John, are you back with us? I just want to see if you're back with us. John, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Because I was able to hop back on.
Hey, look at John. We hear you great. This is we're not going to endorse Verizon, but we can hear you now. Okay.
All right. I must have hit a bad spot while I was driving. Sorry about that.
No worries. So we just wanted to bring you in, John. This is John Walsh. John Walsh is the general manager of Dais. As I had said in the beginning of the program, comes out of the University of South Florida, was very heavily involved in the Economic Development Commission out of Tampa, obviously has known Dais for many, many years now. John, I just want to ask you a couple of questions. You've heard some of the conversations that we're talking about. Obviously, you're passionate about the company. You work for the company. So, we won't hold that against you. Wink, wink, nod, nod. But I just want to talk about PFAS, and I want to talk about the overall of the DLYT, the nanotechnology. What drew you to Dais? Why are you a big fan of Dais? Why are you working with Dais? We want to get it from the inside scoop here before I ask the next line of questioning.
Well, the thing that drew me mostly to Dais are the people. Both Tim and our chief technology officer and our the chief engineer are tremendous people, and their passion for doing what's right for the future is really what drew me. And the opportunity to work with a company that is got tremendous ability to grow, and being able to be a part of that is something that's important for me.
So, John, I just want to go back here. There was a press release that came out, and this was a quote that you said, and I want to read this for our viewers and our listeners because I think it's extremely important. It's very articulate. So bear with me as I read this because I want to get your more in-depth thoughts on this quote. You said, quote, "Unfolding on a world stage are sizable uses for our nano material platform," and the EU's new regulation, including not only newer PFAS requirements for contamination removal, but it also includes a ban on key refrigerants, which is a PFAS product, DLYT, which Dais is a product of Dais, removes PFAS from contaminants to a zero trace level. And we have a line of HVAC equipment coming which does not use refrigerants. These innovations are made possible by DLYT. The point is the sizable production horizon for the nanomaterials is now coming into plain view, said, quote, John Walsh, general manager of Dais. Break that down for me. What led you to that quote? What's going on behind the scenes that you want really people to understand? It seems to me that this is the game-changing technology we've been looking for in purification, especially when we're going after the issues with PFAS now, which have now, based on the news articles that are coming out, created a global newsworthy talking point.
Yeah, I think Tim hit on something earlier when he said that DLYT sparks your imagination in such a way that the uses of it are limited by your imagination. And I think what we've been able to do is really begin to focus and start looking at those uses and applications that are going to be most impactful. So the PFAS, of course, and the water issue is huge on everybody's mind. It's something that everybody at the company is behind. If we're able to reinvent the HVAC industry in a way that allows us to do exactly the things that we can do today without using harmful chemicals, that's just a big win for all of us, right? Not just us at the company, but all of us that live on the planet. So that's what I'm focusing on and looking at in the way in which I'm seeing how things are unfolding with the DLYT product. We could be distracted by a lot of different things, but once we start focusing on those things that are most important, it really gets you energized.
Well, John, and just parallel, having a parallel comment off of that, which I agree with you. I've been following this company now for some time and have had many conversations with Tim. And I mean, we're looking at the DLYT product, the NanoClear product, the Conserve ERV product, the Polycool product. These are incredible technologies that are coming out of Dais. What's your message to the investor? What's your message to kind of the marketplace when they're looking at Dais? I mean, obviously innovations are happening on a daily basis. What's your message or your quote forward-looking statement, if you will, if we could say that? What is your message out to the viewing audience?
Well, I think in many cases, a lot of people look at all of those different applications that you just described and are wondering, well, which one is the focus, right? Well, that's what we're doing. We're beginning to focus. We know all of these things have worked. We understand the product and DLYT and its features. Now we're beginning to focus on each one of those individually and coming up with a strategic outlook for every one of them. So we're not confusing each of them. We're going to have a clear path going forward in each one of those market segments.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent articulation of that, John. So thank you so much. Tim, I want to go back to you real quick with a question. The flexibility of the company's advanced nanomaterials lends itself to covering a wide swath of uses. We've talked about so many different applications here. What do you see the most demanded use case for some of Dais's products are right now in the marketplace?
The simple things that save people money. And that would be Conserve, the energy recovery ventilation product that's associated with air conditioning. The modified atmospheric packaging, putting a piece of this in refrigerators like Haier does in China, creates an atmosphere inside of a crisper drawer that allows foods to stay fresher up to 3 times as long and lowers the amount of waste. A third of all the food that we that we produce in the U.S. is thrown away.
Yeah.
We want to bring that number down because it's not only the saving of the money piece of it, it's the tertiary, the behind the scenes environmental impact. For instance, I read a number this morning that just boggles my mind. 1 pound of hamburger emits or creates over 600 pounds of CO2.
Incredible.
It's amazing. We can't keep living like this. We know that. So to restore the ecosystem, So to answer your question directly again, it's simple things that work, demonstratively work. And that's the beauty of the material. We say it all the time. It just works. And that's wonderful.
And that really is our hashtag, right? Dais quote, it just works. And I just want to, I want to say this in closing, Tim, for today's segment. Recently, the European Union introduced new rules for implementation regarding the discontinuing of the use of products made with PFAS. Okay. We've talked about this before in some of our other segments. This is the forever chemicals. But what I want our viewing audience to understand, and John, maybe we'll get you to weigh in here in a second, but the chemicals have been used in, quote, tens of thousands of products, cars, foods, textiles, medical gear, windmills, refrigerant, gases for HVAC and refrigeration due to their long-term resistance to extreme temperatures and corrosion. That alone, and I want to make this clarifying statement, because of these very stringent rules in the cleanup for EU regulation, and that's before we even talk about the US market, okay, the impact of that refrigerant ban just on the HVAC industry, which you just spoke about, right, is $26.3 billion. So I want to put that for the Market Hunters viewing audience. And if you're just tuning in now, we're speaking with Tim, who's the CEO of Dais. We've got the general manager, John Walsh, who's also joining us. This is a $26.3 billion market opportunity that I don't see anyone else tackling except for you, Tim.
Well, thank you for that. But John's really doing the work, and the people that work for him, I just kind of get in the way and cause trouble. No, kidding aside, attempted kidding aside, it's a huge issue. But you talk about that's $1 billion market. You look at
$26.3 billion market, Tim.
Yes, but the point is that you look at the application and the market sizes, and they're all changing, looking for more stringent things. And thank God we fall into those parameters. But by the Department of Commerce's view, along with what we fed them and we pull out of industry, we see the market being just under $750 billion a year, and it's growing.
Yeah, I mean, it's tremendous to me, Tim. And I think for John, what's your comments on that? Obviously, you're on the ground floor. You're working with a lot of the engineers. You're doing a lot of this innovation. You're leading a lot of this innovation. Walk us through. Walk us through your perspective on this, John.
I think one of the things that hit me pretty quickly after I came to Dais was a lot of the things we were working on are so ubiquitous today. And it's hard to, because it's not extremely sexy, right? The numbers that you bring up are very good, but when you talk about HVAC and some of the other things, it's not as sexy as some of the other innovations that are going on out there. So we need to create that message that really tells the story that this is a way in which we're going to change how things are done going forward in many different ways. It's just it's a very exciting time for me.
Well, one of the big things I want to put on this is a little factoid, right? Investors are managing about $8 trillion in assets. In December, they wrote to 54 EU companies urging them to phase out the use of PFAS, right? This is a real piece of information that I want our people to understand and our listeners to understand. The annual health cost from exposure to PFAS in the EU has been estimated to be anywhere from 52 billion to 84 billion euros. That's about 55 billion to 90 billion US dollars. The regulatory actions highlight the importance of the company's work with a large multinational conglomerate, which we cannot mention, but you're obviously working with them. No refrigerant gases are required. This is a major deal, Tim. Talk to me about this. And John, if you want to add in, please, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. This is a major statement.
It is. I mean, the industry is housed around refrigerants, and they're going away. They have to go away. As the EU has pointed out, they are PFAS containing materials. They have to stop. So we can step in. We use the material, a little bit of water, and some vacuum, and we make it work. People talk about this all the time, but they're still building this, building that. We don't have a commercial product yet. We're working on it, but if you want to see it functioning, we can get you a video. It works. It's here. We have one in our office, and it's worked for well over 11 years. Yeah. So
I mean, that right there, explains it. The features of its nanotechnology platform enable a change to the architecture, features, and functions of each.
Oh, excuse me a second, Hunter. You said something there that's really, really, really important. What
Yeah,
Willis
let's
Carrier did
talk
in
about it. Go ahead.
1902 is he came up with a way to do things, and people have improved on it, and it works. And I don't want to say, it's terrible, we can replace it, blah, blah, blah. No, it really does a good job, but we can do it better, and we can make it less expensive, and we can make you more comfortable. That's the message.
Well, so Tim, obviously that's a great message, and we're going to be following this company along. We're coming to the end of the program, and so I just want to once again reiterate my thanks of you joining us. John, any last comments that you'd like to say on behalf of the company, or anything that you're working on that you want the viewing audience to maybe take as little little segments or little talking points you'd like to leave with the audience?
I think I've known this company for over 20 years and came on board just, like I said, about 20 months ago. And every time I visited the company or talked to the people here over those 20 years, I left with more ideas than what we talked about. Because like Tim says, you're limited by your imagination when it comes to a lot of this. There are so many different things that everybody walks away with, saying, hey, maybe you can do this, maybe you can do that, maybe you can do this. And it's like, well, no, I know we can do those things, but it's a question of time and being able to have the capacity to focus on it. So for everybody out there, it's one of the most exciting things that I've ever been involved with. And I just really look forward to the next few years.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining the program. And Tim, always, it's a pleasure to have you here. And I just want our viewing audience to understand, like, we've been following Dais here very closely. We're a big fan of the company. Anyone that's watching Market Hunters and our Markets Hunter platform, when we look at companies, we just don't look at the technology. We just don't look at the stock. We look at the fundamentals of the company. We look at the technology of the company. We really do a deep dive trying to spread the word about the innovations that these companies are doing. And Dais is one of these, because it doesn't just affect us personally. It affects us as a country. It affects us, from a community perspective, from a nationwide perspective, a state perspective. We've seen a lot of stuff go on in the contaminations world with this recent event in East Palestine, Ohio, or Flint, Michigan. And you go back, and I encourage you to watch some of the other episodes that we've done with Tim, where we talk about some of this technology. So Tim, John, thank you so much for joining the program. We look at having you again next time here in the next week or so, where we're going to keep following the company and a lot of the innovations and developments. So Tim, thank you so much for joining us. John, such a pleasure to speak with you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Hunter.
Hunter, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity, and look forward to chatting soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so you just heard it live here, folks. This is what we do on Market Hunters. We bring you the real conversations from the CEOs and leaders of industry that are pushing the industries forward. So we make sure you like, subscribe, follow. If you heard anything today in the interview that really sparked your imagination and you want to share with your colleagues, make sure you send this link out. This will be live airing right after this segment. It'll be on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It'll be all over the place. And look, people are already demanding that we want it out there. So, they're already calling, ready for this. So it's great. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, as I said before. All of the bios, any of the information from Tim or his company, it's going to be below. I've put him in the lower thirds here. You'll see his name. The stock symbol is DLYT. It's Dais Corp. You can also visit their website. The links will be included for all of the programming that goes on from here. And we'll also be dropping a couple of Spotify episodes where we have some industry analysts, from former chemical analysts from Goldman Sachs, and some big Wall Street people that are going to be covering this as well, that are following the stock, that are very bullish about it. So look, at the end of the day, our job is to bring you the market. This is what we want to do. We want to bring you the real conversations happening to you every day live. And that's why you subscribe to Markets Hunter. And so we appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you again next time, right here live on Markets Hunter. Be well. Till next time.